All right, welcome. Today, we're going to unpack a really profound concept, but we're going to do it in a totally different way. We're not looking at this as some ancient, dusty text. Instead, think of it as a practical, actionable guide for your life right now. So, let's start with a problem I think a lot of us can relate to. You have that moment of insight, right? That flash of clarity, that feeling of awakening. And then, what? What happens the next day? How do you stop yourself from just slipping right back into your old habits? How do you actually live from that awakened place? Well, the tradition actually gives us a surprisingly modern answer. It's like a complete framework, an entire system designed to sustain that awakening and make it work in the real world. And it's called the Samanta Bhadra Samadhi.
Okay, now that is a mouthful. You can see the full classical name right there, but listen, don't get hung up on the terminology. Seriously, because what this name represents is nothing short of revolutionary.
Let's just translate this into a language we all get. Forget about some mystical, far-off state. Think of this as a complete operating system. It's like someone handed you the source code to the Dharma itself, the fundamental blueprint of reality, and then gave you full admin permissions to run the whole program. And this brings us to a really crucial point. We are not talking about a single person, some bodhisattva you're supposed to worship from a distance. No, we're talking about Samantabhadra as a mode of being, an executable program, a pattern of awakened action that's available to anyone. It's a total shift from a person to a process. Okay, so let's dive into this operating system. Let's look under the hood at its core architecture. We're going to unpack 6 fundamental principles. You can think of them as the 6 essential lines of code that make this whole thing work. So the very first line of code, universally enter the equality of all Buddhas. Right away, this just shatters the whole idea of a spiritual hierarchy. This is our first clue that we're dealing with a radically different way of thinking. What this really means is that you're not trying to become a carbon copy of some other enlightened person. Instead, you're tapping into a universal quality, the shared, equal essence of all awakening. The differences we see between them, that's just their manifestation, their unique expression in the world. The core essence is exactly the same. Now, this second line of code completely reframes how we think about wisdom and time. It says, the ocean of wisdom and light of all Buddhas of the 3 times is born from this. So what on earth does that mean? It means that your practice isn't about trying to recreate some historical event from thousands of years ago. It's about plugging into a living, dynamic source that is constantly generating wisdom right here, right now. Awakening isn't a noun from the past. It's a verb in the present tense. Okay, this third principle is where things get really wild. It completely challenges our sense of scale. It says that in every single speck of dust, the full potential for this awakened action exists. Completely. Totally. The implication of this is just, wow. It means you don't need a huge stage or a massive following. Your own little world, your immediate life, contains the complete potential for universal awakening. It's telling us that true practice is about getting the structure right in your own life, not about the scale of your influence. This next piece of code is a real game changer. It shifts the focus away from this idea of heroic, solo effort. Instead, it's about a kind of collective alignment. It says this power, this empowerment comes from all Buddhas, all because of a universal foundational vow. So awakening isn't some personal trophy you win. It's the natural outcome of aligning your personal will with a universal purpose. And in our operating system analogy, it's like this. The more you reduce your own self-interest, your own personal agendas, the higher your system permissions get. Less me means more access.
All right, the 5th line of code gives us a whole new definition for wisdom. This isn't about being book smart or clever. It's about the ability to enter the true reality of all dharmas.
This is a massive shift. It's seeing wisdom not as something you have, but as something you are. It's not about your intellectual horsepower. It's about your structural integrity. It's about being in such deep sync with the way things really are that your thoughts and actions are no longer twisted by your own personal biases. And this final piece of the code, this is where we see how this operating system seems to bend the rules of reality as we know it. It talks about how a single, unified moment of thought can connect all of time and space. So what this is really getting at is that the things we might call supernatural abilities,
They're not supernatural at all. They are the perfectly natural functions of a mind that isn't broken up by the illusion of a separate self. When you remove the internal barriers, the external walls of time and space start to become permeable. Okay, so we've looked at the source code. That's the what. But what about the how? How do we actually install this OS? Well, this next part is your user manual. 3 key calibrations you can start applying in your life right away. Let's run through these. First, you shift your focus. Stop aiming for just a result and start trying to create a container. Ask yourself, is what I'm doing replicable? Does it help other people? Second, elevate your vow over your emotions. When you feel upset or frustrated, does your core commitment stay solid? Your vow has to be bigger than your feelings. And third, act into perfection. Don't wait until you feel perfect to start. The perfection is found in the action itself. And all of this leads to the ultimate self-check, a question you can ask yourself over and over. If I were to disappear tomorrow, could this project, this community, this way of being keep going without me? If the answer is yes, then you're no longer just building a personal legacy. You're building a sustainable system. You are already walking the path of Samantabhadra.